Hi everyone, my name is Richard Diaz and welcome back to the IceCap Canadian Market Wrap. In this week's video, we'll be discussing the labor force survey data that was released on Friday. In truth, it was a late game audible. I had every intention of talking about Canada's trade data, which was weak, as expected. When I saw the labor force data come out, I had to pivot. Why? Well, basically because buried in the data was something that has me seething. And to be honest with you, this channel sometimes serves as my outlet for macroeconomic frustration, but also because the data allows us to touch on a bunch of different topics like growth expectations and the BOC's upcoming rate decision. Okay, so let's get right into it. As usual, we start out with the headline. Canadian employment declined about 84,000 in February. The employment rate fell to 60.6%, and the unemployment rate rose to 6.7%. It was not great to say the least. And it also suggests that last month was a bit of an aberration. Canada is back on trend, and that is for weaker employment growth. You can see that in the following chart. The bars highlight the monthly change, the latest being the minus 83.9 thousand that we saw. The dotted line is the trend in job growth. The blue line is total employment. And at this point, I need to point out the mistake that I've made. For a while now, it's been my view that Canada's in recession. This assertion is the basis of the prediction I made last year, suggesting that we've seen the peak in employment for this cycle. Indeed, I was wrong, but I'd like to take another crack at it. I think December of 2025 will indeed be the peak, but we shall see. But enough about my guesses. Let's look at the data. February's employment growth was extremely weak, but it was also widespread. 13 out of the 16 sectors contracted, marking it one of the worst months ever. 7 of the 10 provinces also experienced job losses. Zooming in, we can see where the jobs have come from and have gone. Employment declined in both services and goods sectors, that's red and blue. And of course, to nobody's surprise, public administration rose again. Got to keep that voter base happy. Now, to be fair, total public sector employment fell in February, and that's in red. But I submit to you that there's a big difference between nurses and public administrators. In any event, public sector employment remains at a 30-year high, and this is with deficits set to explode. But let's refocus and look at the composition of the employment growth, this time looking at full-time versus part-time employment. And again, it's not great. Part-time employment grew, but full-time employment fell. And from an economic perspective, this is a red flag. Full-time employment is much more important. These workers are better paid and in general are more productive. As mentioned off the top, another key indicator is the employment rate, which fell again in February. This chart helps us put it into context. This key ratio is basically who's working versus who's not working, and it's at a 20-year low. Next, we'll look at the unemployment rate and some quick math, but please stay with me. The unemployment rate rose 0.2% to 6.7 in February. That's the blue line, and that means 1.5 million people are now currently unemployed. That's the red line. But again, to get a better idea of what's going on, we need to drill down. The unemployment for prime age workers, those from 25 to 54, rose slightly. For older workers over the age of 55, unemployment actually fell. Baby boomers have all the luck, it seems. And the reason I focused on the labor market data this week, the snapback in youth unemployment. Okay, now for some quick math. The formula for the unemployment rate is the number of unemployed people divided by the labor force. The numerator, it's pretty clear. Unemployed people are those not working, but what about the denominator? To answer that, I'll lean on this labor market tree, which splits out working age population into different groups. On the left, labor force, this includes those working and those unemployed, but critically those also looking for work. And on the right, it's those that are not in the labor force. Now, this might include people who are retired or permanently unable to work because of health reasons, or those that have stopped looking for work because of childcare or education, and those that are discouraged due to poor economic conditions, due to a belief that there are no jobs out there for them. This manifests as a drop in the labor force, which you can see clearly here. Canada's labor force has shrunk by 146,000 this year. This is the result of both a slowing population growth as well as a falling participation rate. This means that the real unemployment rate is actually a bit higher than the official one, and that's the gray line. That then brings us to another labor market indicator, the participation rate, the percentage of working age people that are in the labor force. And this indicator allows us to draw some interesting demographic conclusions and provides a different insight on the health of the economy. The participation rate gives us a fuller picture of the labor market health than the unemployment rate alone. A low unemployment rate can be misleading if people have given up looking for jobs and have dropped out of the count entirely. For prime age workers aged 25 to 54, the blue line, this has not been the case. The participation rate fell last month, but in general, it is still very high and was trending higher, which is good. But that's a different story for youth participation. Now, youth participation has fallen off a cliff. One thing to note is the different scales on this chart for the two series, left and right. And this is because in general, young people are much more likely to be in school full-time, transitioning between jobs, and still figuring out what they're going to do. The different scales are to highlight the big drop. And yes, 3% doesn't sound like a lot, but for participation rates, it is a huge, huge drop. And you can see the huge drop in participation translate into the spike in youth inactivity. That's the red line in this chart. Youth inactivity is up more than 20% from its 10-year run rate. And if we adjust the unemployment rate for that change in participation, youth unemployment is actually at a 35-year high. This is a bloody tragedy. And this is one of the slides that's probably the most tragic in my entire Canadian chart pack. What's important to note is that young people need to get into the workforce for all kinds of reasons. Self-esteem, money, but most importantly, probably productivity. If you miss out on those first few years, it can take maybe not a decade, but a long, long time to catch up to where you would have otherwise been. So how did this happen? Well, Canada swamped their labor market with millions of low-skill, low-wage workers, and there was not nearly enough private sector jobs to absorb this new supply. How do we know this? Well, according to the Bank of Canada, nearly 100% of Canada's population growth from 2022 to 2025 was driven by immigration. And before I hear people say, well, Canada has always had very high immigration, let me just stop you right there. The recent jump was massively outsized. It was drastically different in terms of both size. The population growth jumped from 300,000 a year to 900,000 a year. It was also different in the type of a labor stock we were importing. It was significantly younger and less experienced than in the past. To add insult to injury, these newcomers were invited to work in the exact industry that young people might otherwise begin their career. To quote the Bank of Canada from a May 2025 paper on this exact subject, the gain has been particularly acute for industries such as accommodation and food services and retail, basically where young people start and get their first jobs. I'm often asked why boomers don't seem to care about the negative impacts of mass immigration, and the simple answer is that they are unaffected. Boomers came of age during a period of strong economic growth and, crucially, housing affordability. So they don't feel the same financial pressures like unaffordable housing and job competition. This chart makes it extremely clear. Immigration was dominated by young people in red, while boomers basically had no extra competition. This chart corroborates the BOC's findings. So now that I've got that all out of my system, what does it mean? Well, it confirms what we've been saying for a while now. Canada's growth will remain weak, and that 1.2% GDP growth expectations are probably still too high. It also adds pressure on the BOC to cut rates again going forward. And this is despite the fact that the OIS curve, that's the bunch of dots we can see on the chart, have actually been rising over the last few months because of worries about inflation. We remain extremely skeptical about the BOC's ability to raise rates and are still pretty convinced that the next move is down, but of course, we shall see. Now, to be clear, the news is not all bad. Business confidence is hinting at a cyclical rebound, which could indicate better hiring going forward, but that depends on the stabilization of the trade backdrop. Re-upping Kuzma is absolutely vital, and no one seems to be talking about it, as well as a healthy domestic consumer and continued fiscal support. We hope that's the case, but of course, hope is a bad strategy. All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like, subscribe, and follow for more. And as always, feel free to get in touch.